As we enter into Advent today, the beginning of our church year, we cross a threshold into a time of waiting, watching, hoping. Although this year seems like all we have done is wait and watch as we strive to hold on to hope. We enter into the year of the Gospel of Mark. It is a time of living into the already and not yet, of God with us in the resurrected Christ and our hope of the promised coming of the Christ child. Jesus speaks of the end and the coming of the Son of Man. It is called the mini apocalypse of Mark. Jesus calls the people, throughout all time, to stay awake. I'd like to share an ancient Cherokee story with you. Once upon a time, when it was still very early upon the earth, the Great Spirit decided to visit the creatures of the earth, still new from creation. Everyone was told to stay awake and to watch and to wait for 7 nights. And those who stayed awake were promised gifts of power. They were all excited and determined to stay awake to get this power. They all began with chatter and wonder, questioning and suggestions on how to do it. Many thought it would be easy and boasted that they'd be able to do it. Practically everybody made it through the first night, except for a few who slipped away and didn't dare show their faces. The second night, they were beginning to think it would be easy until it grew very dark, and there were no stars because of the thickness of the fog. It was getting harder. Eyes were drooping, and heads were nodding, and jerking up again and again. By the third night, no one was saying much of anything, but walking around, jumping up and down, leaning against trees and rocks, splashing water on their faces, singing aloud, anything to stay awake. By the fourth night, most were asleep, out cold, not even trying anymore, exhausted. And the 7th night came, and only a few were still awake. And the Great Spirit came, found them sleeping, looked at those still watching and waiting, and smiled. Among the animals, only the owl and the panther had stayed awake. And so they were given the power to see in the dark. And from then on, they'd be night creatures, hunting in the dark, preying on those who had fallen asleep and had to rest at night. Among the plants and trees, there were a few more that had made it through all the nights. The pine, the evergreen, the spruce, the hemlock, the cedar, the laurel, and the holly had all been watchful. These were the faithful ones, and they were given the power to stay green throughout all the seasons of the year, and their leaves would have great medicine for the healing of the nations. They would keep their leaves and needles while all the other plants and trees, bushes and grasses would lose them and have to fall asleep through the long snows until spring woke them up again. And so it is until this day. We are to be on alert, keep awake, watch for signs of the return of the Messiah, a time that no one knows, only God. When times become troubled, like we are experiencing now, when it seems there are endings all around, that our world has changed, many have difficulty sleeping. Lately, I've heard so many stories of waking up in the middle of the night, unable to sleep. And we may attribute the wakefulness to anxiety, fear, or uncertainty, but perhaps our souls are seeking to keep awake in hope for the inbreaking of light in the darkness of our times. As we enter into Advent, hope begins to bubble up and emerge afresh. Hope is a feeling of expectation and desire for something to happen or someone to appear. We must choose and nurture hope in this darkest time of the year, when the sun rises late and sets early and nights are long. all creation is allowed to rest, to rejuvenate. Yet Jesus calls us to keep awake. There is power in even the smallest light to break through the abyss of darkness. Once upon a time, before electricity, lamps, light switches, and heating units, candles and firelight were our only sources of light and warmth in the darkness. Light and warmth from fire were precious. Resources were limited and were treasured. Rituals were created to acknowledge the gift. Creating sacred rituals at home encourages wonder, fosters hope, opens the path of faith for children of all ages, be it a lighting of candles, offering prayers for loved ones in the world, giving alms, or reading scripture, or just having fun together. Creating sacred rituals prepares our hearts and souls to recognize the divine breaking into the world. Rituals help us stay awake, deepen awareness, and be present to the inbreaking light of the Messiah, whether it be in evening, or at midnight, or at cockcrow, or at dawn. Keep awake.